Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Sitting Explained, we've got Overlord, where during World War II, a group of soldiers face off against horrific experimental Nazi zombies. Based on that ridiculous idea alone, kind of a B-movie throwback, I was already excited for Overlord, despite the egregious use of AC/DC's Hell's Bells in the trailer. It led me to believe this was going to be one absolutely batshit insane movie, and really delivering on the soldiers versus Nazi zombie concept. But it honestly left me wanting more in every regard. I'd say the movie is actually more defined by its World War II battle elements than its horror ones. Kind of a 70% war movie and only 30% horror. Wish those had been a little more evenly balanced and that it would have gone much more into the horror side of things. It was also much more simplistic and smaller in scale than I had anticipated. Pretty much a couple of soldiers gotta get into a building and then later they do. The end. Interestingly, I read the script has been kicking around for a few years, and the original version was prominently more horror, and also featured a big climactic battle between the soldiers and a bunch of zombies. These were literally my two biggest disappointments. No horror, and no big battle at the end. It's strange that they decided to cut this stuff down. Perhaps it was due to budgetary reasons. I guess it's not an entirely original idea either, as I couldn't help but be reminded of the Norwegian Dead Snow films when watching, which also featured Nazi zombies. But it took place in modern times with German soldiers being resurrected as the living dead, and was a lot sillier in style compared to Overlord, which plays things pretty serious for the most part, for better or worse. So while it didn't quite reach the levels of insanity I had hoped for from the concept, it was still entertaining and quite a thrilling ride. Oh, and to clear something up, this is not a Cloverfield movie. For whatever reason, every time JJ Abrams produces a new movie now, people automatically theorize it could be part of the Cloverfield series. And that was the case once again with Overlord. These were all rumors and the movie has nothing to do with Cloverfield in any way whatsoever. It's just Nazi zombies, no aliens. Though Abrams has teased there will be a proper next installment in the series coming soon, at the moment we don't know anything more than that. It's also worth noting that the zombies of Overlord aren't exclusively zombies in the traditional sense, or the reanimated undead. They do have those, yes, but what is behind their change doesn't only work on the dead. A serum that has been developed by a Nazi doctor, that when injected into humans alive or dead, causes them to transform into more primal and super powerful beings with behavior not dissimilar to a zombie, rather than there being some kind of outbreak that turns those that dies or anything like that. And there is more to discuss on the various assortments of zombies that appear in the movie, which we will get to in a bit. So let's dig into Overlord, breaking down the story, what the experimental serum is all about, as well as explaining the ending. On the cusp of D-Day in World War II, we meet our cast of soldiers on their way to an important drop, but they're shot down by enemy planes, forcing them to evacuate. This sequence following Private Boyce's perspective as he is forced into the air out of the airplane into a free fall and landing in water thousands of feet below, all done in one take, is a heck of an intense and stylistically interesting way to kick off the movie. Unfortunately, nothing ever quite reaches the heights and skilled execution of the opening. Still a good start at least. After the crash, only 6 of the men survive, and even though set back by the crash, there is even more pressure on them to fulfill their mission. The soldiers, led by Kurt Russell's son, explosions expert Ford, rallies the troops to continue onward. As we learn, they are in German-occupied France to destroy an extremely important radio tower used by the Third Reich in a small French town. The tower is used to communicate between Berlin and their troops on the front lines at the beach in Normandy, and if neutralized would give the Allies a huge advantage. So they have no choice but to do their best to fulfill their duties heading towards the town, even though they suffered several casualties. Before they arrive, in the woods, they encounter a young woman, Chloe, who lives in the village, and who helps them sneak into her home undetected. Hiding in the attic, we see the town is in a stranglehold under the control of the Nazis there, led by Captain Waffner, who is unsurprisingly a pretty bad dude. Chloe lives with her younger brother, Paul, who instantly has a connection with one of the soldiers' Tibbets, following him and mimicking his movements, to his annoyance, but was actually pretty adorable if you ask me. There's also Chloe's sick aunt, kept confined in a room out of sight, who when we do catch a brief glimpse of her looks very, very sick, like something definitely ain't right there. And apparently she has been this way since taken by the local troops to the church in town, and has been fundamentally altered by her time there. That's because the Nazis randomly round up citizens in the town, taking them to their compound at the church and doing experiments on them involving the mysterious serum, one subject being Chloe's aunt, Though I guess she technically did survive whatever they put her through. We see the full scope of their facilities by accident when Private Boyce flees from troops in town, hiding in the back of a Nazi truck, and is taken right into their compound undetected, and stumbles upon their secret experiments, finding a reanimated corpse locked up, and then discovering their laboratory filled with suspended bags in the air attached to tubes, each one containing a person, including one of the missing soldiers from his group inside of one, setting him free and finding a heavy-duty tube attached to his stomach. They are obviously pumping a form of the serum into his and the others' bodies. Whatever makes up the serum initially occurs naturally, in fact in a pool below the church facility, which was discovered by the Nazis when they arrived in the area. As the doctor later reveals, it's this liquid that is actually being filtered through the people's bodies in the bags for their use in the experiments. And after this process, the serum is ready for trial. Their intended final goal is to use the serum to create Nazi super soldiers that, as stated by Waffner, can live for 1,000 years, even though it's still highly unstable and in need of a lot more testing, as we soon see. We don't ever get too much in the way of specifics relating to what the liquid is exactly, though it only seems to technically work after it's been filtered through a person. Still hiding in Chloe's attic, they are discovered by Waffner, but Ford turns the tables, kidnapping and torturing the Nazi officer for information. He doesn't give them anything and is even able to escape their grasp, snatching Chloe's little brother on the way out. He doesn't get away unscathed, however. In the car about to get away, Ford gets a shot right into the side of his head, blowing the side of his face off. But he's not about to let that slow him down, and despite the doctor's warnings that they've never tested the serum on a living person, Waffner injects himself with it, and as a result is not only able to keep, moving at all, but becomes super powerful and yet much more deranged and violent than before. So I guess the serum does work on the living too, though certainly not perfect. We also see the effects that it has on the recently deceased when the soldiers attempt to resurrect one of their own Chase with the serum. It brings him back momentarily, but he quickly suffers some seriously adverse effects, becoming monstrous in appearance, his body contorting, and perishes once again. They then decide on what to do next to try to fulfill their original purpose of being here. Ford continues to be focused only on their particular mission, wanting to destroy the radio tower, but Boyce, having been in the facility, thinks there are bigger matters at hand than just their original mission, and wants to eradicate the entire facility after what he's seen, as well as wanting to help Chloe get her brother back. Ford agrees, and they descend upon the compound, two heavily armed soldiers staying at the gate to pick off the Germans' numbers. This sequence feeling like Call of Duty or something, while Claire, Boyce, and Ford sneak in via the sewers below. Once inside, they split up, Chloe going in search of her brother, while Boyce and Ford separately rig up explosives around the facilities. In the tunnels, Chloe comes across a German soldier that tries to dupe her into entering a prison cell, opening the door and pointing her inside, but he ends up getting dragged in by the souped up zombie creature that was imprisoned within. Whoopsies! The zombie turns to Chloe, who is not only able to get Paul out of the facility, but also takes out the powerful creature with a flamethrower, which was pretty badass. Flames usually work, right? And Paul is taken to safety by the other two soldiers outside, rescued by Tibbet, who Paul had been mimicking earlier. He does get shot for his efforts, but it proves non-fatal, and shows he did actually care about the kid. Heartwarming. As Ford starts to finally rig the all-important radio tower with explosives, he's found by the serum-enhanced Waffner. Ford isn't able to put up much of a fight due to his uber strength, and is dragged to the lab and hung on a hook like a slab of meat to die. However, the sound of Boyce nearby lures Waffner away, and Ford manages to very painfully lift himself off the hook and onto the floor, with precious few other options as he's on the verge of death, and his mission is as of yet incomplete. Ford injects himself with the serum, allowing him to keep going for now. Thanks to this, he is able to temporarily dispatch Waffner, and gets Boyce out of there, locking himself inside, understanding it's better for him to not get loose either, as the serum begins to show its effect on his face. But there's still that dadgum radio tower that hasn't been rigged yet, as Waffner stopped Ford earlier, telling Boyce to take care of it, and as he runs away, Ford uses a lighter to ignite the charges in the facility, destroying Waffner along with all their experiments. Boyce is able to take care of the tower as well, setting it off and making it out as the entire facility explodes into debris around him, in another impressive one-take sequence. So all of the evidence was successfully destroyed, along with the radio tower burying any proof of the Nazis' experiments and helping to ensure our victory on D-Day. Later, when Boyce is questioned by another officer about rumors of a lab being in the village, he chooses to lie, and say there was nothing like that here, as there might be a chance of them trying to dig deeper if the rumors had turned out to be true. Hopefully now all of that craziness can stay dead and buried for good, though the fight isn't yet over for Boyce and the other two soldiers, as they are sent to a new unit to continue on in the war, which, in case you forgot or fell asleep in history class, was won by the Allies not long after. I am kind of disappointed we don't really find out what happens to Chloe along with the soldiers. As far as I'm concerned, she was actually by far the coolest and most badass of all the characters. She took out a lot of Nazi scum and was an invaluable part in making their mission a success. The one time we hear her last name, it's Laurent, most assuredly a reference to actress Melanie Laurent, who starred in Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards, as a similar kind of character which was also set in World War II. Clearly the writer was inspired by her also badass character, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, Chloe wasn't even an experienced soldier or anything, just some girl living in a remote French village, but was still an ace with any weapon, including a flamethrower. There's no way she's even used one of those before, but she's just like, I got this, torch this zombie bitch. I want to know what's next for her. She just goes back to baking bread or some shit after everything that happened, and presumably would have to kill her zombie aunt as well, because otherwise some evidence of the experiments is still around if her aunt is. Just a lot left dangling there. I think the idea they're trying to go for here is to not mess with nature, since man can't ever truly control it. Sure, you guys found a magical random serum, but maybe don't try injecting it into people just to see what it can do. Oh, those crazy Nazis and their zombie serum super soldier experiments. When will they learn? Okay guys, that'll wrap it up for this ending explained on Overlord. While it didn't quite live up to my expectations, I still did enjoy it for the most part, and the few glimmers of fulfilling its own promise, like the opening sequence and Waffner's gruesome makeup along with the other zombies, were pretty great. I just wish it had done more with it. Oh well. And don't forget, you can send me video requests for movies or TV shows you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. What did you guys think of Overlord and its ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.